homesick British expat, 59, died when he was hit by a train 2 days after being knocked down by a lorry during his first visit to the UK in 10 years. A homesick British expat walked into the path of an express train on his first return trip to the UK in 10 years, an inquest heard. Retired science teacher Nicholas Carroll, 59, had been due to return home to his family in Canada for Christmas when he walked onto the tracks at Gatley railway station near Stockport, Greater Manchester. He was hit by a high-speed train just moments later and was killed instantly. Police investigating the tragedy, which took place on December 22 last year, discovered Mr. Carroll had been treated in hospital in Ashford, Middlesex, 2 days earlier for a cut to the head after being clipped by a lorry. They investigated whether Mr. Carroll took his own life but told an inquest they found no note or any evidence to suggest he wanted to kill himself. But relatives in the UK were unaware he was even in Britain until they learnt of his death. The hearing was told Mr. Carroll, a married father of one originally from Huddersfield, West Yorkshire, had moved to Canada in 1982 with his wife Rogia and settled in the town of Cochrane near Calgary, Alberta. He had suffered from severe homesickness after they first left England, but his wife said it soon passed, and up until 2007 he made regular trips to the UK to visit relatives. Last December he was in the UK to withdraw money from his British bank accounts with a view to deposit them in his accounts back home. In a statement Mrs. Carroll said, "He did his teaching degree in Leeds and became a physics and woodwork teacher. We married in 1981 and emigrated to Canada in 1982. He began teaching as soon as we got there, and then we had our son Patrick. He also worked on the school board. For the last 20 years we lived in Cochrane while his parents remained at Huddersfield. He sometimes suffered with fatigue. He loved playing golf and he loved watching rugby. He suffered from OCD as a teenager and would make lists for everything. This got worse as he got anxious or stressed, however when he retired this subsided. We would visit his parents every summer, but he rarely went to London, he only went to the north of England. The last time he went to England was in 2007 when he went to Boston Spa to visit his uncle in Yorkshire. He was going to the UK in December 2017 as he was going to withdraw money from our British bank accounts and put them in our accounts. He was due to go between 15 and 23 December and booked to stay in a Premier Inn. I didn't have any concerns about him. Whilst he was there I found out it was his Uncle Terry's 90th birthday. He had been quite close with his uncle after his parents died. He had no financial problems. He didn't drink, he was teetotal. He liked a good debate, but he was also inquisitive. Nick was part of an open family where we discussed most things. He would get a plane to Manchester and a train to Huddersfield. He suffered with depression, but he had no mental health issues. He suffered with severe homesickness when we first moved to Canada, but this soon passed. Leanne Callan of British Transport Police told the Stockport inquest, he arrived in London from Calgary on December 13, 2017 and stayed at the Premier Inn in Heathrow. He had withdrawn £1,300 in denominations of £300 and £200 at various cash machines at the terminal in Heathrow. At the scene of his death, officers found a large amount of sterling and Canadian dollars. He wasn't very tech-savvy. He did not have a mobile phone with him. He had previously been clipped by a lorry on December 20. He travelled to Manchester Piccadilly railway station, arriving at 9:31 p.m. He was stood on the platform a long period of time. There was nothing unusual about his behaviour, he looked like a normal passenger. He then boarded a train to Wilmslow at 10:43 p.m., but got off at Gatley at 11:06 p.m. He appeared to be comfortable. Then all of a sudden he appears to walk onto the tracks and he is hit by a high-speed train. It came as a shock to the family that he was actually in Manchester. There was no intent to commit suicide, there was no note, or change in his behavior. Unfortunately we have drawn a blank. PC James Cullinan added, CCTV showed him arrived at the platform, getting off the Wilmslow train at 23:06 p.m. He walked around the station for a bit and looked at the departure board. He had 3 pieces of luggage with him. He stood beneath the rain shelter for a few minutes. He occasionally walked out to the main road, then came back to the platform. He kept switching between platforms, one was Manchester bound and one was Wilmslow bound. 3 high-speed trains passed him during this time on the Manchester-bound side. At 23:45 he steps down from the platform and walks into the tracks. Moments later he is hit by a train. There was nobody present throughout the entire time he was there. Dr. Anna Wetherell of Ashford Hospital said, on December 20 a 59-year-old man was admitted to the hospital by ambulance. At 22:20 he had been involved in a road traffic accident. He was hit by a lorry and thrown to the floor. He had a superficial cut to the head and was placed on a spinal mat to support his back. He told me he was working as a school teacher in Calgary in Canada. A post-mortem test showed Mr. Carroll died from multiple injuries. Recording a narrative verdict, Coroner Alison Much said, "We will never know what or why he stepped on the tracks at the point that he did. I am not satisfied beyond reasonable doubt that he intended to take his own life." According to an obituary in an online newspaper in Canada, Mr. Carroll taught at Mitford Middle School in Calgary for 20 years before retiring in 2013. It described his death as a tragic accident.